Hi everybody, nice to meet you. I am Yuri Niño. I am Cloud Application Modernization Engineer at Google. I am based on Bogota, Colombia. It's an honor to be here. Thank you very much for joining us. You can find me in LinkedIn, X, and YouTube as Yuri Niño, or in my personal webpage, Yuri Niño at Dev. The title of my talk is Provisioning Cell-Based Architecture with Terraform, a new approach that is making a pivotal shift to meet the emerging demands of hyperscaling, availability, and security. This is the agenda for today. I am going to start by mentioning some challenges that modern architectures are facing in the cloud. Probably you think that is more of the same. However, I will try to give you a different point of view using elements of other engineering fields, such as the Titanic tragedy, for example. Once we have explored the history, I am going to introduce you to cell-based architecture, a new approach for creating digital services that are both scalable and resilient. In the following, I will walk you through setting up a cell-based architecture in Google Cloud, demonstrating how to achieve high availability, scalability, and isolation of services in this provider. I will use serverless technologies like Cloud Functions and API gateways, and of course, Terraform for automation or infrastructure as code. Finally, I am going to talk about observability or operational considerations, which is crucial in this type of architectures, since it's the way to get visibility of each cell health, performance, and metrics. To close, I will mention a list of takeaways. So let me start with the challenges in the cloud. I don't want to sound pretentious, but I would like to summarize four of the most critical challenges with only one word: reliability. Let me explain why availability, scalability, security, and resilience are the top of causes potential services outages. Probably most of you remember the Titanic sack of 15 April 1912 in North Atlantic Ocean. The Titanic was the largest ocean liner in service at the time, with an estimated 2,224 people on board. If you remember, the ship struck an iceberg, and 2 hours and 40 minutes later, the Titanic sank, resulting in the death of more than 1,500 people, making one of the deadliest maritime disasters in the history. The post-mortem of the tragedy revealed that although the bulkheads extended well above the waterline, they were not slit at the top. So after the strike, too many compartments were flooded. The water spilled from one compartment to the next in sequence, producing the sinking of the ship. The Titanic tragedy inspired the bulkhead pattern, a type of software architecture designed to face the four challenges that I mentioned previously. Do you remember? Availability, scalability, security, and resilience. In a bulkhead architecture, also known as cell-based architecture, elements of an application are isolated into pools so that if one fails, the others will continue to function. The pattern is named after the section partitions or bulkheads of a chief hull. If the hull of a ship is compromised, only the damaged sections filled with water, which prevents the ship from sinking. This diagram, taken from the Microsoft Azure site, I really recommend this site if you want to learn more about cloud patterns, shows bulkheads structure around connection pools to call individual services. If the service A, for example, if the service A fails or causes some other issue, the connection pool is isolated. So only workloads using the thread pool assigned to the service A are affected. Workloads that use B or C service are not affected and can continue working without interruption. That is great, no? Although the pattern is very obvious and simple, I could say, and again, I hope not some pretensions, this design has been avoided thousands of incidents. With that context, let me deep on in the cell-based architecture, the main topic of this talk. And that I'm mentioning in the other name used to refer the ball head pattern. Cell-based architecture is a modern approach for creating digital services that are both scalable and resilient, taking cues from the principle of distributed system and microservice design patterns. This architecture breaks down an extensive system into smaller, independent units called cells. Each cell is self-sufficient, containing a specific segment of the system functionality, data storage, computing, application logic, and dependencies. This modular setup allows each cell to be scaled, deployed, and managed independently, enhancing the system's ability to grow and recover from failures. Let me take some water. As it is illustrated here, in a conventional architecture, if something in the design fails or causes some issue, the 100% customers will be impacted. Whereas in a cell-based architecture, the damage in one of the components of the cell won't affect the entire system, since each cell operates independently, maintaining overall functionality. This design minimizes any single incident impact area or blast radius, enhancing the system resilience by keeping disruptions contained and preventing outages. A cell-based architecture is composed by four main elements, although some implementations include extra components such as data and management plane. Cells, the cell router, the communication layer, and the control plane. The cells in blue color are the foundational building blocks of the architecture. Each cell is an autonomous microservice cluster with resources capable of handling the responsibilities of the service. A cell is a standalone version of the application with computing, load balancers, databases, and other things that your system requires to operate. The cell router in the top part plays a critical role similar to traffic management system in a city. The cell routers routes the request to the most appropriate cell. For this, it uses factors such as load, location, or specific service requirements. The cooperation between cells is essential for handling tasks across the system. So the next element in the inter-cell communication layer, which facilitates message exchange. Finally, the control plane acts as the central hub for administrative operations, such as provisioning, deprovisioning, and migrating. According to Erika Pisani is one of the authors of a recent publication about this topic in InfoQ, says that cell-based architectures promise mitigate the incidents generated by issues in the four components. Do you remember them? Availability, scalability, security, and resilience. Or in my words, to face the lack of reliability, one word. Specifically, the promises are cell-based architectures increase the resilience of systems. They are a good options for systems where any downtime is considered unacceptable. Augment the scalability model of microservices, make clear and complex architectures, and they are of a great help to improve the security of distributed systems. But how it is achieved? Here are the response. Let me complete the previous statements with these explanations. Cell-based architectures increase the resilience of systems by reducing the blast radius of failures, since each cell is independent. They are a good option for systems where any downtime is considered unacceptable because they force fixed size cells as deployment units. In this way, the cell-based architectures augment the scalability model of microservices by favoring a scale-out rather than a scale-up approach. They make clearer where complexity is present as microservices are packaged and deployed as a cell. Finally, they help to improve the security by applying additional level around cells. For example, firewalls, load balancers with certificates, and other techniques to provide security. Having said these things about cell architectures, let me focus on their implementation. And since this talk is about Terraform, let me share how could you automate them with infrastructure as code. The process to provision this type of architectures include 5 steps: designing, partitioning, sizing, implementing, and deploying in each cell or cell router or the communication layer. And it is illustrated here. Let me describe each one. So, hands to work. Let me start with the design, in which each cell operates independently with its resources. Here are some considerations when you are designing a cell. Start identifying distinct functionalities within your system can be isolated into individual cells. This might involve grouping services by their operational needs or user base. Once you have defined these boundaries, equip each cell with the necessary resources, such as databases and application logic, to ensure it can function autonomously. This setup facilitates target scaling and recovery and minimize the impact of failures and issues in one cell won't spill over to others. Here are a few ideas on cell designing that can be useful for providing resilience. Distribute cells across availability zones. By positioning cells across different ACs, you can protect your systems against the failure of a single data center or geographic location. The second recommendation is implementing redundant cell configurations, creating copies of cells within and across regions can further enhance resilience. Third recommendation, design cells for autonomous operation, ensuring that each cell can operate independently with its own set of resources, databases, or other things that cells need to operate. And finally, use load balancers and cell routers strategically, integrating load balancers and cell routers that are aware of cell locations and cell and health status can help efficiently redirect traffic away from troubled cells to other regions. In this implementation, we will use a Google Cloud account and one Cloud Run function, one bucket, and Terraform. Here, basically, I have the code to provision a Cloud Run function in Google Cloud. The objective is to provision a cell as we need. So, ideally, use modules and loops in Terraform for implementing this type of architecture. Then in this case, the name of the function that will represent a cell is function cell. The idea is to have as function as your cells have. Now, how cell partitioning can be done? It can be achieved identifying partition criteria, which is the basis for distributing workloads among cells. Typical criteria include location, user ID, request type, or date range. This step is pivotal in defining how the system categorizes and routes requests to the appropriate cells. The routing logic can be implemented with API gateways, as is this case, using identify criteria to redirect incoming requests to the correct cell. Several algorithms can be used for effective cell partitioning. Choose one according to types of workloads and system requirements. I have a list here, so let me mention some of the most famous in the literature. Consistent hashing. Requests are distributed based on the hash values of the partition key, for example, user ID, ensuring even workload distribution and minimal reorganization when cells are added or removed. Range-based partitioning In this case, separate data into ranges, for example, alphabetical or numerical, and assign is part to a specific cell. This is ideal for ordered data, allowing efficient query operations. Round robin, that is very famous. This method distributes requests evenly across all available cells in a cycle manner. Sharding is very common also in database, for example. Similar to range-based algorithm, but more complex. Sharding involves splitting large databases into smaller, faster, more easily managed parts, or shards, each handled by separated cells. Here, the code to provision an API gateway, which I have named Gateway Router. Again, my recommendation, use Model to provision the only cell router that composes the infrastructure. The idea is the cell router distribute the load according to a criteria that you define here. But in this case, as you know, when we are provisioning an API gateway in Google Cloud, we have to declare the configuration in a YAML file. In this case, we are using the path section in the file to set up what should the destination of our request. As you can see, if the path finishes with ID1, the request will be redirected to the first cloud function or cell one. The same configuration should apply to the other cells identified probably with ID 2, 3, or 4. The idea here is use this configuration to provide the logic to separate the request according to the proper cell. In this case, that is fixed in the file. In a third step, let me give you some recommendations to determine the proper size of the cells. With size, I am referring to memory, disk, CPU capacity, etc. Cell sizing involves a careful analysis of several factors. That is really important. Workload analysis, or understanding the nature and volume of each cell's workload. This includes peak demand time, data throughput, and processing requirements. Resource requirements based on the workloads analysis, which estimate the resources, CPU, memory, storage of each cell needs to operate effectively. Key performance indicators are very important here. Remember, the numbers allow us determine what is the behavior of our systems. In this case, KPIs define successful set operation. It will include response types, error rates, and throughput. It is very common to use the four golden metrics: saturation, networking errors, and and others. Don't miss the scalability goals, defining how the system should scale in response to increased demand. This will influence whether cells should be designed to scale up or scale out. Finally, test and adjust. That is very, very important. If you don't test with real users, for example, probably you are facing an incident in the future. For this case, the size is reflected in the attribute available memory megabytes. That is an attribute that can allow us to configure the value for the memory. But in this case, we are using, or we are mapping 128, but you can use another numbers for this value. Finally, implement and deploy, which is basically launch our design. As you know, the core Terraform workflow has 3 steps. Init, in that case, we are initializing the infrastructure as code, plan, preview changes before applying, and apply, provision reproducible infrastructure. As optional step, you could design to destroy the resources in order to avoid overcost. That is very, very important. If, for example, you are testing these concepts in your cloud, it's very important to destroy the resources after the POCs. Regarding how is cell deployment done, some responses include automating deployment pipelines, which handle the applications, packaging, testing, and deployment to various cells. Automation ensures consistency, reduces errors, and enables rapid deployment across cells. You can use blue-green deployments strategy to minimize downtime and reduce risk, or roll out updates to a small subset of cells or users before making them available system-wide. This allows you to monitor the impact, the change of, and roll them back if necessary without affecting all users. So that is all. But I think the puzzle is incomplete, considering we didn't include the final and is an important step, observability. And it is not final because observability should be present in all process while we are implementing, designing, partitioning, and implementing our cell-based architecture. So let me talk about this to close this talk. Operational considerations. When you consider this step, it is really important to consider CI/CD, integration and deployment, observability, and security. But I am going to focus in observability since I don't have much time. But the idea is to review the other topics also. To achieve draw cell observability, focus on three key areas: logging, monitoring, and tracing. Logging captures detailed events and operations within each cell. Monitoring tracks key performance indicators and health metrics in real time. Tracing follows requests as they move through the cells, identifying blockness or failures in the workflow. Logging tools, solutions like Logstash, Splunk provide powerful logging capabilities, allow you to aggregate and analyze log to sales central. So in this part, it's really important to consider the tools, the solutions, and the technologies available in the market. So let me talk more about that without mentioning brands or technologies specifically. Look for logging tools that provide powerful logging capabilities, allowing you to aggregate and analyze log from all cells central. Choose monitoring solutions carefully that offer robust monitoring capabilities with support for custom metrics and provide integration for applications deployed on their respective cloud platforms. Use distributed tracing system, which will help you to understand the flow of requests across cells and identify latency issues or failures in microservice interactions. Finally, service mesh. That is really interesting since we know three pillars for observability: logging, monitoring, and tracing. But in this case, we have another option: service mesh. Service mesh, such as Istio or Linkerd, innately offer observability features, including monitoring, logging, and tracing requests between cells without requiring changes to your application code. So finally, my three takeaways, but probably you can find more information about benefits and a disadvantage of this type of architectures. But I wanted to show how to implement this type of architectures. That is a new approach for creating digital solutions with Terraform. So I hope that it can be useful in the future to automate this type of implementations. Finally, my three takeaways. Cell-based architecture enable horizontal scaling by adding more independent cells, improving resilience by isolating failures to individual cells, reducing blast radius. Independent units or cells are the core concept in breaking down a system into self-contained units, each with its own resources and functionality, allowing for independent scaling, deployment, and management. Key components in these architectures include the cells, a cell router to redirect traffic, an intercell communication layer, and a control plane for overall management. Cell-based architectures offer advantages like improved scalability, resilience, and safer deployments, but introduce complexities, as I just mentioned, no free lunch. So it is important to consider the complexities in this type of architectures. For example, they are more expensive than other because in some cases you have to duplicate the logic in different cells, but you get another benefit, the reliability. Reliability, remember, resume four words: availability, scalability, security, and resilience. But as I mentioned, this type of architectures introduce complexities in designing, implementation, data contents consistency, because that is really important to use tracing, for example, and in observability, and operational overhead. So that is all. Thank you so much for being here. And remember, you can find me in LinkedIn, X, and YouTube as Yuri Nino. Or if you visit my personal webpage, yurinino.dev, you can find more information about cell-based architectures and and other topics related to DevOps, platform engineering, site reliability engineering are related to this new approach for creating resilience and reliable architectures. Thank you. Have a great day, and thank you. Thank you very much for being here. It was an honor to share this information with you.